part two of the amplifier. So it's been what, since October since I posted anything about this? Well, here's what it looks like now. I've been kind of reluctant to post anything because um, when the thing is in progress, the wiring looks very, very messy until you start tying it up. And, you can see you've got a lot of spaghetti here, but you can see that if when you measure your lengths carefully, when you go to tie everything up, it does what it's supposed to. So, and if it doesn't, you pull out the wire that offends and you rerun it with a new one. Um, so yeah, I mean, you can see that when it's all tied up, it's going to look pretty darn clean. When these are all flapping in the breeze, but you see they'll tie up nicely. Okay, so this is mostly done. I've got a couple problems to solve. I got a few components that I need to mount in places that I haven't accounted for yet. And I think I'm going to make a couple more small circuit boards and hang them off the edge of the stepped attenuator. There's a nice Allen head screw right there. And I think what I can do is just make a board and put one screw hole in it and make it butt up against this input tang. And so it'll just be sticking out that way. And then I can mount the few components and they go right to this thing anyway. So they can just mount them right there, and I'll do the same on the other side. And this is part of the feedback circuit, so it goes from the 8 ohm output transformer lead to a few resistors and stuff, and then through this stepped attenuator, which controls the amount of feedback. So you can dial it up as much as you want, or as little as you want, or none. And then this is the metering board here. So I made those, or got those made, and stuffed them myself and all that. But they basically have all of the dropping resistors and power supply stuff for the metering circuit, and those are mostly wired in right now. And what I did with those is actually pretty cool. Rather than make new holes for them, I got some nice long 2-inch standoffs, and I piggybacked those on top of the screws that are already coming through the front bezel of the meters. So the 3 screws that hold the meters in, stuck out about 3/8 of an inch, and that's just the right amount to screw a standoff on top of it. And so there's 3 standoffs, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, and then they just come up here, 1, 2, 3, and that's how the metering circuitry is not only right next to the meter and right next to all the knobs that control it, but also not putting any holes through the top plate. All the bias pots are wired up. The OA2 for the meter circuit's wired up. The 6DJ8 for the meter circuit's wired up. Really just got to solve a couple issues around the feedback. Now, here's an interesting thing that happened. Over to here, this is the old umbilical cord, homemade out of cubicle wiring stuff that I made with, I did a pretty good job making them, but they're still, relatively speaking, cheesy, although electrically very sound. But I made those 20-something years ago, and I just wasn't happy with them. So over here is we have the real solution to the problem, which is mil-spec stuff. These huge Glen Air connectors have both multiple 16 gauge and 12 gauge pins on them, and these are brand new, and I dressed them up a little bit by putting this flex sheathing over that, your standard wiring stuff, the one-piece stuff, not the stuff with a slit. But this is so I had to take apart the head, take apart the back shell a little bit, and take out all of this rubber grip material, and then run that into there, and then reassemble it all. But and then your standard Kellum's grip electrical strain release. So obviously the socket end of this is going to come out of the amplifier, and the plug end of this, the socket end socket end is going to come out of the power supply, and the plug end out of the amplifier. And just to show you what kind of wire this stuff is, well, I've got it all taped up, which I had to do in order to get this flex braid over it, because without taping it up, it would just snag and you'd never get it over. But this stuff is all ETFE silver-plated copper in twisted pairs that are individually shielded. All the shields are connected common electrically, but there's also a main shield over the entire thing underneath there, and even the shield is silver-plated. I mean, this stuff is crazy. You can see the wire there. It's got that cross hatching, which apparently they do it by irradiating it with a laser or something like that to give it strength. But this stuff is like military, aircraft grade connector, and I think it's going to be absolutely killer for connecting the power supply to the amplifier. It's got 18 conductors that are already pinned through, and I can't ask for any better than that. So I gave myself a little work by ripping out the old umbilical cord out of the power supply. So this one's going to have to go in soon here, and I've got it all peeled back, and underneath this tape it's all numbered and stuff. Really, really incredibly high quality stuff. I mean, it's all silver plated copper. What better could you ask for hooking the power supply to the amp like that, with multiple currents and voltages needed? It's just absolutely ideal for the task. So very happy with that. And yeah, so right now I'm just in the final phases of this. Got to solve a few issues, things I didn't plan ahead for, but they'll work out. And then, tie up all the wiring, make it look neat and pretty. And then we start testing. All right. That's the amplifier update for February the 15th, 2020.